Yo, what's going on? I appreciate everyone for tuning in this late night. But I wanted to jump on here and hey, it's a holiday week. I know I ain't put out as much content as I normally would, but I was like, yo, let me get on here and do a late Wednesday show to keep the schedule intact. I went to a game and saw the Wizards get destroyed. After the first quarter, I think James Harden had 23 points and the Wizards had 22 points. So it was an absolute debacle. But this week there were some interesting stories that I wanted to cover. Normally for these shorter stories, I would just put out pre-recorded content, but I was like, you know what? It's a holiday week. I've been busy, so I'm just going to take care of it in one sitting. As always, I'm Marcus, and here we talk attorney reactions to current events and trending topics. I'm a licensed attorney. I'm not your attorney. So, hey, don't get legal advice from a talking head on YouTube, even if it's me. I say that every show, and I still get emails. I'm not going to say asking questions related to personal legal matters. And we're going to talk about one of those messages today. Won't be any disclosure of the name, but if I say that and you send me something, I reserve the right to talk about it. So we're going to talk about that in our final story where we dive into the PPP loans, the PPP list, what's going on with the PPP thing, because there's an absolute debacle and people are still getting arrested as they should for stealing millions of dollars. But the first story I want to talk about, and as always, if you get some value out of this content, like, share, subscribe, join, all of that good stuff. If you find any value in this content, the first story I want to talk about is a story that I did a video on last week, and it was regarding Juicy Smollett having his conviction overturned when he filed essentially a false police report saying that he got jumped by some black guys in -5 degree weather in Chicago wearing MAGA hats. That to me, it just made no sense. And I saw this video on CNN. They posted it to their website. And I don't know. Y'all let me know. Is this how everybody is thinking with regard to uh, Jesse Smollett having his conviction overturned, or is this just this guy with the fedora on CNN? Because we're gonna watch the video. I want y'all to get his take on how he interprets this being overturned as a victory for the culture. I don't know what culture, but he interprets it as a victory for the culture. I want y'all opinion on it. We're gonna watch this video and I'm gonna give y'all my take on what I think about it. Let's go ahead and cue this video up.
But probably this is probably the best outcome for something like that.
But it's also the origin story of the backlash to the sort of racial justice moment that was happening at that time.
Now we're paying attention to the brother right here on the right of the screen with the fedora on. His interpretation of how this conviction being overturned should be received by, I'm assuming he's speaking for black people, or I don't know. I'm confused. Let's just watch and then we'll talk about it.
The backlash to the sort of racial justice moment that was happening at that time.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, Jesse back up. Jesse back out here. This is vindication.
Is this vindication? I don't know if for everybody who's a channel member who watched, I think we all know what happened in that case. It wasn't a vindication as far as I'm concerned. I don't think this Jesse back up. He should get all of his movies back. This is vindication. When you're vindicated of something, that means you didn't do what you were alleged and convicted of actually doing. Jesse Smollett did all the shit that he was convicted of doing. He just had low friends in high places who were able to make a mistake or accident or on purpose. I don't know what it was, but they were able to do something that was piss poor prosecution that allowed him to get the conviction overturned. But I don't think this is a vindication. I think it's just, hey, you are somebody who got a little bit of resources, you got low friends in high places, and they kind of hooked you up with one. So I completely disagree with Fedora guy, but let's just finish listening to it because it makes absolutely no sense to me. I'm not a fan of anybody curbing the justice system. I don't give a damn who you are, elephant, donkey, black, white. It is what it is. I would prefer that shit to apply equally across to everybody, but we know that's not the case.
As far as I'm concerned, Jesse back up. Jesse back out here. This is vindication. Jesse needs all movies restored, all roles back, all records back in play right now. We needed a victory.
We needed a victory. Who needed a victory? I don't know. Y'all let me know. Is this dude like speaking on behalf of like all black people, or if he's speaking on behalf of like black Democrats or black men who wear fedoras? I'm really confused, but I disagree with everything that he's saying in this tape.
Back, all records back in play right now. We needed a victory. We've been on a losing streak for a couple of weeks. Jesse's back. I think that people overreacted to this, and I told people this before. Even if Jesse did do this, even if he did do it, it's just not that big of a deal to me.
But they're not saying he didn't lie. They're saying he shouldn't have gone through with the prosecution
because of double jeopardy.
Because but I'm saying it's not like saying, oh,
he has absolutely no clue of why his conviction was overturned. There's no way you can have even a brief understanding of what actually happened to cause this dude conviction to get overturned. It has nothing to do with his guilt or innocence, because he was actually guilty as hell. When you read the initial allegation, I think anybody who put a little bit of thought behind it would have known that it didn't make any sense. And look, let's rewind this clip back, because everybody, when they heard this, nobody waits for facts to come out. The best thing to do if you don't know what to say is just wait to see what facts come out. Sometimes, I jump to conclusions. We all jump to conclusions sometimes. But everybody at the time that these allegations came on had something to say. And they even talked about it. This post that they have up on the screen is one of the things that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, initially posted when this happened back in 2019. And now when we fast forward in hindsight, we like, we don't know who should have said what with regard to this whole bogus story. So the general rule is, if you hear something that's wild, we all make assumptions. I make assumptions. I heard that story and I assumed that it was a lie because it just didn't make any sense. But I think the best thing to do is just stand by until you get more facts. I'm assuming he's speaking for black male Democrats, because he says we took a lot of losses lately, and this being overturned is vindication and is a win. I don't think it's a win. I actually think it's a loss. I think it's a loss anytime somebody can use their power, their privilege, having low friends in high places to finesse the justice system. Because if that was you, you wouldn't have got this a break. But let's just watch this terrible take one last time. But I don't think he has any understanding as to why his conviction was overturned to say something like this.
It's also the origin story of like the backlash to the sort of like racial justice moment that was happening at that time.
Yeah.
And I'm just be honest, his hat is annoying me too. Outside of his terrible take, the hat is annoying me too. Like I don't know. I don't know. You don't know what's going on in the case. You don't know why it was overturned. You making outrageous statements. You're claiming Jesse Smollett is a victory for all black people. It's terrible. A victory for all. I don't know. I just can't.
As far as I'm concerned, Jesse back up. Jesse back out here.
This is embarrassing.
This is vindication. Jesse needs all movies.
Look how she looking at him. She like, what are you talking about, bro? Like, even this woman is like, I don't get it. It's kind of weird. You know what? I don't even want to keep talking about this story again. Not because it's not newsworthy, because it is newsworthy. But let me see. That's who it is. That's Jesse's agent. I don't know, man. Like, even if that's his agent, because it on the news article, on the clip, like, I don't know, on the clip, it didn't give, like, you know how normally it shows everybody else, the political commentators, their names, But yeah, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. Jesse being overturned isn't a victory for anybody. It's just another example of how low friends in high places equals unfair treatment to people. I don't think anything should be restored. He did do what they charged him and convicted him of. Fortunately for him, the chief prosecutor, Kim Fox, is either incompetent at her job or an alternative, she did it on purpose so that she could pave the way for him getting that conviction overturned. Those are the only two things. Either you don't know any better, which is embarrassing if you're a chief prosecutor, or an alternative, you did it on purpose just to try to finesse the system. Y'all let me know which one y'all think it is. I think it's I don't know. It probably a little bit. It could be a little bit of both. It's better for 99% of guilty men to go free than one innocent man be convicted. So if it's so it is justice. Yeah, I mean that's a fair point. That's a hey, that's a fair point. And shout out to you. I want to give you a round of applause for dropping the first comment of the day. But first, I think that's a fair point how you put that. And a round of applause to you for dropping the first comment of the day. I don't know. I just don't like how that presentation was. You screwing over you beating the system. It doesn't equate to vindication. Vindication means that you asserted that A happened and it was proven that A happened, or that, so I don't know. I wouldn't call it a vindication, but hey, if that's his agent is saying what he's supposed to say. But it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for Juicy to get back on of television. Now, let's take a look at this next story. Let's turn the page real quick. Let me go and cue it up because I thought this story was interesting. This was a very interesting story. We're going to pivot from this guy.
Drake is fine.
Now, we're going to pivot from this is actually an interesting story. We're going to pivot to hip-hop artists filing lawsuits and what does this mean? And I'm conflicted on this, okay? Because the how can I put this? The hip hop person in me, the person who loves hip hop, who loves the history of hip hop, the person who understands that hey, when you're challenged, you have to step up to the challenge. Even if you lose, you have to step up to the challenge. I kind of look at this two different ways, but Drake has filed the lawsuit. He's actually filed two lawsuits. We're going to talk about both of them. I'm not going through the complaints because it's too long and I got a couple stories I want to cover, but he filed a couple of lawsuits. One I agree with more than the other, even though I think it's kind of weird to file a lawsuit in relation to a rap battle. Like, I don't know. That's kind of soft. That's just my personal take. But let's see what these lawsuits are about. He filed two lawsuits. The first lawsuit was defamation. I'm sure you all are familiar with if you aren't, with the Kendrick and Drake beef in some point in several songs. Drake was referred to someone who likes to sing in a certain chord of A minor, and you all get it, the reference if you're familiar with the song. So if somebody saying that your favorite chord is A minor, I can see why you would want to file a lawsuit. Like, bro, especially if it's not true. If it's true, just shut up. But if it's not true, I can see why you would want to file a defamation lawsuit. I think it's stupid for several reasons, but let's watch the video. Then we're going to talk about the softness of these lawsuits, and then we'll talk about whether there is a sufficient legal basis with regard to these lawsuits.
Filing a petition against Universal Music Group and Spotify, accusing the companies of, quote, Drake is filing.
Remember, and this wasn't, I said lawsuit. There was a petition filed. The petition being filed is a lot different than a civil complaint being filed. We'll break that down. But he filed the petition.
Drake is filing a petition against Universal Music Group and Spotify, accusing the companies of, quote, artificially inflating the spread of Not Like Us by Kendrick Lamar. In the New York court filing, Drake alleges UMG and Spotify, quote, deceived consumers into believing the song was more
We're gonna
go viral. UMG part the suggestion that UMG is untrue. Senior culture reporter is offensive and untrue. Do anything to undermine any of its artists is offensive and untrue. Senior culture reporter at ESPN's Anscape and author of It Was All a Dream, Biggie and the World That Made Him, Justin Tinsley joins me now for more. Justin, thanks for coming on. First, I just want to get your reaction. What did you think when you first heard the claims in this petition?
Wow. Like, in the history of rap beef and all the rap beefs that I've covered in my career and all the rap beefs that I've read about over the course of the genre's entire history, from Ice Cube and NWA to obviously Tupac and Biggie, Jay-Z and Nas, so on and so forth, you've never actually seen potential litigation come into play. So
That's crazy. Going to court when you're enthralled in a rap beef is wild. It's kind of getting soft. I can understand it. So let's talk about the first lawsuit before we even watch the rest of this clip. The first lawsuit, like I said, is a defamation lawsuit where he's saying that, hey, my favorite chord to sing in is not A minor. Get it if you aren't familiar with the song. If you are, you are. But I think that's a viable claim. There's a few problems with it, but if someone in the song says that you like to sing all your songs in A minor and it's false, I think that's a valid claim for defamation. The only problem is that I don't understand why he's bringing this lawsuit, because if I were Kendrick Lamar, I would just file a counter lawsuit for defamation saying that, hey, you said that I am an abusive spouse. If that's the case, if you saying I made a fake claim against you, you made a fake claim against me. It could be all sorts of cross litigation going on. So I don't see the benefit of it. I see why you would say it, because you're tired of every time you go out to a club, they always play that song and all you hear is A minor. So I get it completely why you're doing it, but I don't understand legally why you're doing it, because two reasons. The other thing is, I think that, and this is funny because it's never really been litigated, and I've never heard it. It may have been litigated, but I never heard of it. But I think that there's an underlying notion that in hip hop beef or music artistry beef, there are going to be some things that are considered hyperbole that aren't true. Oh, your rhymes is whack. Oh, you got your ass whipped and you a Tybo. You know Tybo because you don't know how to fight. Rappers have been saying wild stuff about people all the time. So I think, one, there's a certain level of just making up something or throwing something out there just to make the bar work that is included in hip hop. But the bigger thing is, I just don't see how a defamation lawsuit, I think it is a viable lawsuit, but it's stupid to bring, because he can bring the exact same lawsuit against you for saying that he is an abusive spouse or significant other. So I think that's dumb. In lawsuit number 2, the one that they're talking about, Drake is suing the record label, essentially saying that the record label used a little bit of payola by paying radio personalities and people to overplay this song, and they use bots to get extra streams on Spotify to make this song more popular. Now, the interesting thing is, the petition that he filed is against his actual record label. A petition isn't necessarily a civil complaint, but it does allow you to obtain evidence to prove your actual case. So it allows Drake and his team to actually go forward and try to obtain evidence to prove that the record label overinflated this song by using bots on Spotify and paying people to play it to get the hype. The only thing the thing that doesn't make this make sense, not from a legal standpoint, but from a common sense standpoint, Drake is suing his record label because they overhyped with money and bots this Kendrick Lamar song. But if you're saying that's true, it's probably also true that your record label overhyped a lot of your songs to make a lot of your songs go viral. So my question would be, how deep do you really want to dig into this story? I think the other thing too that's also an issue, if I'm not mistaken, I read an article that said Drake is up for contract negotiation with his record label. And so the popularity of Kendrick Lamar's song taking Drake down a few notches could be worth tens of millions of dollars. Like, yo, you're not as hot as you once were because of this song. So it's a couple of nuances that could be involved in this second lawsuit. But at the end of the day, I think the defamation lawsuit, although I think is a viable lawsuit, I think is dumb because I think they both likely engaged in putting false stuff about the other in their music. And this one is just even more ridiculous because you're suing your record label for something that the record label probably did on numerous occasions to benefit your actual career as well. So let's go and finish watching this video, and then we'll get back into the next story.
When I saw this drop yesterday, I was like, wow, this is definitely a new frontier in terms of rap beef.
Now, how big of a deal is it for a star like Drake to be alleging that one of the largest music labels in the world and streaming platforms in the world were basically conspiring against him to promote this diss track?
It's a potential bombshell because what he filed was a petition, which is not to be confused with the lawsuit. Basically, a petition is going to allow his lawyers to look at evidence or search for evidence that they alleged in that petition. Now, if they find things to their liking or find things to their interest, they could potentially file a lawsuit. But like you said, this is one of the biggest stars in the world, one of the biggest music labels in the world, one of the biggest streaming platforms in the world, and he's alleging foul play. He's alleging that they juked the numbers in terms of helping his rival, his foe out, and it in terms to hurt him. So it could potentially be a major lawsuit when we're looking at in terms of the intersections of the criminal, not criminal justice system, but law enforcement, law, courts, and hip hop, which already has a storied history to begin with.
I don't know. I think Drake would have been better served just leaving it alone and let sleeping dogs lie. I think you filing this petition and the defamation lawsuit, now you essentially got a whole bunch of old guys who are probably not savvy, but they've been practicing law for a long time to go click on that song and want to hear the song that you're talking about. I don't know. I think sometimes it's better to just take your L and move on silently and just keep it moving. Y'all let me know what y'all think. I don't know. The heart design of his haircut makes me think about his core choice. Is a fair point, and I just think litigation from a rap beef is historically again. This ain't the 90s when people were getting shot, even though it still happens, unfortunately. But historically, rap beefs were about, yo, I'm the better lyricist and you whack, or you not a dope DJ, but my DJ is nice. And so I don't know. I feel like keep it on the wax. Filing the lawsuit makes it look like you lost the beef, but filing the lawsuit just emphasizes that you got your ass whipped. So certain things aren't worth even trying to peel back the layers to find out. But I think it's more of a contract thing. I think that Drake being knocked down a couple of notches puts his record label that he's actually suing in a better position to negotiate a new deal for tens of millions of dollars less than he probably could have gotten before he got his ass whipped in this rap beef. That's my personal thought. Now let's go ahead and pivot to this third story. Now this third story is interesting because this kind of go into the roots of the show. Like, I don't want y'all to get scammed. I don't want y'all to get finessed. It's so hard to be able to work, have enough money to pay your bills, and have, if you're lucky and blessed, you got a little bit of change where you can put on the side. So I don't really want anyone to get finessed. But I saw this and I thought this story was absolutely crazy. It was about a man who was catfished using a deep fake. Now, if you're unfamiliar with what a deep fake is essentially people use artificial intelligence to either create an image of you saying something or asking for something that you really aren't, or a lot of times they also use it to do audio calls. The formats that I've normally seen it in, people use AI. Like, I got videos on YouTube. Someone would use AI to artificial intelligence to mimic my voice and call like my grandmother or something like, oh, Marcus got locked up and he need bail money, and my grandmother gonna be all worried. Jesus, let me help my baby, and she's just sending the money, and then she got finessed out of 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, however many thousands of dollars. That's normally how I saw it. This was kind of a spin on it, but I want y'all to see how legit and how real this fake image is. After I started seeing these stories, I pretty much gave the people in my family like, yo, if I ever call you asking for something crazy, like hang up and call me back first to confirm that it was me. Or an alternative, we came up with a little secret phrase that we use just that we know that, hey, all right, only we know what this particular password is, because it could be somebody sounding like me asking for something, but it's probably not me. Let's go and check this out because I want y'all to see how real this deep fake actually looks. This is a crazy story.
Heard about celebrity deep fakes? So how easily do you think someone could replicate you?
Well, it happened to a former American University student. She says someone used videos from her Instagram to make deep fakes of her and then tried to catfish an unsuspecting man.
Amy Cho has the story you'll see only on News 4.
Hello, Johnny. I'm doing this video to prove that I'm the one chatting with you.
When Amanda Aguilar saw this video, she was stunned. It looked just like her, but it wasn't her.
And I love the video you sent. You look amazing.
It was a deep fake, the work of a scammer, someone who had taken a real video Amanda had posted on Instagram.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh.
And then used artificial intelligence to create a fake video in hopes of catfishing someone.
For someone to go out of their way.
That's absolutely crazy. That's that's absolutely crazy. Yo, it ain't nothing safe out here now. Artificial intelligence is as dope as it is, because all the kids out here writing fake school papers using it and everything. But as interesting and as dope and as many things that it could be used for that are positive, people always are gonna try to find a way to finesse. And I don't know. I think that that shit look crazy. That's actually crazy. Now that I look at it, I'm trying to look to see if maybe the mouth was off a little bit during the conversation. Like the mouth was moving at a pace where the words looked like it didn't match.
Someone who had taken a real video
That's
Amanda
crazy,
had
though.
posted on Instagram.
Hello, everyone.
That's insane.
Oh my gosh.
And then used artificial intelligence to create a fake video in hopes of catfishing someone.
For someone to go out of their way and make a deep fake of me is just like, what? I knew deep fakes were a thing. I just never thought I'd be a victim of them.
Amanda went to grad school in DC and interned here at News 4, then went on to work in TV news in California. Her friends informed her a few weeks ago someone had made a Facebook page posing as her, using her real Instagram pictures. The scammer then messaged a viewer named John Pulido. John says for several weeks, he thought he was talking to the real Amanda.
Just be careful.
Now, John is almost got finessed out of some money, but I mean that thing is pretty. I don't know. It looked like her. It sounded like her. Maybe the lip movement looked a little weird to me, but I don't think nobody would have noticed that.
For weeks, he thought he was talking to the real Amanda.
Just be careful. It just sounds too good to be true, to be talking to a celebrity that reaches out to you.
John says he got suspicious when the person asked how much money he made. That's when he asked for video proof and got the deep fakes in response.
John Polito, I just finished washing the dishes.
And I was like, oh my God, this is her. It was pretty scary because on how good it was so convincing.
He also received this fake video.
Hello, John Polito. I just want to let you know that I am disappointed at you for not trusting me. I loved you. It was nice knowing you. Thank you.
This was
all right. Right then, he should have known that was Kat. The minute she said "I loved you," he should have been like, "Oh yeah, this definitely is some BS." But this shit look. Most people would probably fall for it. I mean, you can't really blame John. It looks just like her. It sounds just like her. Even in this second one, it looked like she was actually saying the shit that she was saying. Like I was trying to look to see if the movement of her mouth matched up or coincided with what was being said, and it appeared to be consistent on that one.
Hello, John Polito. I just want to let you know that I am disappointed at you for not trusting me. I loved you. It was nice knowing you. Thank
That's
you.
crazy.
This was the real video from Amanda's Instagram story.
That's why I booked that Uber, because for some reason it was $7 cheaper than a regular Uber.
I just think about
That's crazy.
someone can take my video and put it out in the public and, you know, say something that maybe I didn't say or do something that I didn't do. And that is scary.
Polito says he messaged a friend who knew the real Amanda, and that's when he learned the whole thing was a scam.
We're seeing a 1400% explosion in the amount of deepfake attacks.
Vijay Balasubramanian founded a digital security company called Pindrop. They developed a software that can instantly detect deepfakes by looking for mistakes in the file.
For example, when you say, hello, Paul, your mouth is wide open when you say hello, and it shuts down when it says Paul. There's a certain speed with which you can do that because you're human. Machines don't care about these speeds.
He says, unfortunately, there's not really much people can do to prevent their public online content from being stolen.
The onus is on the platforms to start providing abilities to detect when something is generated by Amanda and when it is AI generated without her consent.
And as for Amanda,
I think I am going to be a little more picky about what I share.
Now, the AI expert I spoke with says if you ever need to verify someone is who they say they are, ask them to hop on a live video call, like a Zoom or a FaceTime. Don't just settle for a pre-taped video because those are way easier for scammers to fake, guys.
Yeah, but is it possible for them to deep fake you on a live video call too?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, absolutely.
That's
so we saw
crazy.
this happen just earlier this year. This happened at a British manufacturing company. Scammers were able to deep fake a live video call.
Wow.
They were posing as the CFO of this company, and they were able to trick one of the employees into wiring them $25 million. So
God, 20. Man, it ain't nothing safe out here. If y'all ever see a video of me asking y'all for some crazy shit, it's not real. Like, it's not real. That's crazy. $25 million. That's wow.
Video call.
Wow.
They were posing as the CFO
That's
of this
crazy.
company, and they were able to
Look
trick
at that.
one of the employees into wiring them $25 million. So a very, very costly mistake.
Whoa.
So if you are trying to determine if the person that you're doing a live video
crazy.
call with is real, there are a few things you can do. Be on the lookout for pauses as they're talking, because that could indicate that a machine is trying to program those answers. And then also, this is interesting, you can ask the person to wave their hand in front of their face like this. That is typically a lot harder for the AI machines to keep up with. So typically that hand is going to look pretty strange with like 5 or 6 fingers or something like that.
Right,
And I read about it.
question
Yeah.
that
Yes.
only that person would know.
Yeah.
Some kind of, right?
Like an inside joke.
Right.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a, I don't know. I thought that story was absolutely batshit insane. I don't know. They can even use that shit during live streams. So like, I don't know if do a live stream and ask somebody to do like, hey, go ahead and pop lock real quick so that I know it's you. Is a cold game out here. So y'all should be careful, especially with the older people in your family, because it's a lot of, people try to target older people. And if somebody called grandma saying that their grandchild is in trouble or need money, and it sounds like them, grandma, grandpa, or hell, mom, dad are probably going to scramble to try to take care of a person they care about. So y'all make sure y'all definitely warn people about that one, because that's crazy and it just looks so ridiculously real. All right, let's go ahead and dive into our next story. And this one is going to be fun because I got a...
But first, we're learning more about federal charges from an alleged...
All right, let's dive into our thumbnail story. Let's say my mom got that call. That's crazy. That's crazy. What's going on, Common Sense? I appreciate you tuning in. Hey, that's crazy. Like I said, I told my parents I just gave them like a code word or something that I know that we'll just know, just in case they get a call from somebody sound like me because my voice all over the internet for making these videos. I lost to Diddy Pool. He ain't going nowhere. That dude gonna be in there until I don't even think he not gonna ever get out. Now that where he's at right now is probably where he gonna be for the next 20 to 30 years. Fortunately, I answered it at the time, and the person called my mom by the incorrect name they used for my mother as grandmother. Interesting. So luckily, they made a mistake. I told them call back again. I will backtrace your call and have you arrested. They hung up. I do that too. I was like, hey, we're gonna pull up the location of this call. Hey, I appreciate you. I appreciate that. Shout out to the monitors. Shout out to everybody in the chat who's tuning in this later than usual video live stream that we got going on. I appreciate it. Now, let's go ahead and take a look. We're going to dive in this. Before I want to pull a message up, because I say all the time, like, yo, I want y'all to reach out to me. I want y'all to send me emails about stories or something you have an interest in. I'm more than willing to do this. But on my channel email, as well as my personal email, occasionally people reach out to me about things that are going on. And I saw like, man, this PPP stuff is still a big thing. Someone asked me, there was trending was a PPP list. Is there a PPP list of persons to be prosecuted who committed fraud? And the answer is yes, there is a list. I don't think there's one master list. There's probably multiple lists on multiple agents and attorneys' desk who are tasked with investigating these cases. And I can tell you, I've been in this position before where it's a government program. We're investigating and deciding who we're prosecuting. And all the cases that I got, I'll put them in a list of if we have to prosecute these cases, these are the ones we're going to prosecute first. This is the prosecution priority. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the way down to the people who aren't that bad. But I'm going to read a message that I got because I know we see all these PPP things and we think they aren't real, but these things are actually real. They actually impact people. I'm going to read a message. Let me go ahead and pull it up now. Some of the names and facts will be changed to protect the innocent. Let's see. All right. All right. It says, hey, Marcus, I hope all is well. I'm reaching out because I have an issue. I've been served 5 grand jury subpoenas behind PPP loans I received, and I'm at a loss as to how to start. Private attorneys are quoting me $35,000 or more. I don't know if I can qualify for a federal public defender. Can you please help? All right. First of all, I reiterate that I always say, hey, I'm an attorney. I'm a licensed attorney, but not your attorney. But when somebody sends me something like that, is a few things that I do. One, I'm going to read it and I want all the details because I'm nosy. Okay. because I'm nosy. Okay. 2, I'm going to at least point a person in the right direction. I can't represent you, but I can point you in the right direction. And so I was able to send this person a link to a federal website that kind of broke down and identified how federal public defenders are assigned, what's the qualification. I think it had a copy of the financial affidavit that they would have to meet. But I read that to show you all that this PPP stuff, fraud, is not going away. And there are people who did it on small scales. There are people who did it on large ass scales. So point number 1, is there a PPP list for prosecution? There probably plenty. I'm not going to say it may be hundreds, but there are there's probably it's hundreds. I'm not going to say there's hundreds of lists, but yes, there are multiple lists out there. Most times when there's a government program that's being monitored by an inspector general's office, and most of the PPP stuff is done by an agency called SIGPER, the Special Inspector General for Pandemic Relief. Anytime the government creates a program to give out money to people, they also set aside and earmark certain funds to create a special inspector general to police that program and identify fraud, waste, and abuse. So yes, there is a list. It's probably on some prosecutor's desk or some attorney's desk. Normally, how I've seen it is the bosses are like, hey, we want to get a prosecution priority list. Give me the cases that you got and the top cases that you think would be successful, viable cases to move forward with. And every attorney or investigator will develop their list. And that's how the agency prioritizes who they're going to go after. So that's point number one. There probably is an actual list. All right. Let me see this comment. As she should. Hey, I'm not saying that you shouldn't snitch. All I'm saying is that the federal whistleblower statutes are very, very favorable. And in some instances, a person can get, I think it's up to 35%. I can't remember the number because I haven't done a federal whistleblower case in I haven't done one in 6 years. But a federal whistleblower, if you identify fraud, waste, or abuse with regard to a government program, you could be entitled to a percentage of the compensation, a percentage of the actual monies that were lost. So being a whistleblower is, say what you want about snitching. If you're a whistleblower, it's not snitching unless you were engaged in wrongdoing too. Okay. If me and you do something wrong together and I'm telling you, that's snitching. If you do something wrong and I'm telling you as a whistleblower, that's being a law-abiding citizen. But a lot of people do that. A lot of people make careers out of it. I've seen and I've had cases where whistleblower goes to work at company A, identifies things that are being done wrong. After that, because whistleblowers have certain protections, they leave and go to another company. They identify in that same arena. So let's say it's pharmaceuticals. They go to pharmaceutical company A. They identify that company engaging in whatever, off-label marketing. They blow the whistle. They get a percentage of the settlement. They go work to another pharmaceutical company. They find the same thing. So a lot of people actually make careers out of that. So that's actually a good comment. I'm not saying say what you want, feel how you want to feel about snitching. It is what it is. Whistleblowers get paid. Yeah. Is it $35K just for representation at a grand jury? I don't know. Like, I'll tell you, like, I honestly think that with what I got in that message, I think 35,000 is probably cheap. Because you got to think, like, this time of year, right? If this sounds crazy, but attorneys have so much leverage on how they can charge their clients. If you sent me a message like, hey, I need an attorney, I want to retain you, and it's like in November, and you're hearing this during the month of November, December, when I would normally be chilling, I reserve the right to bill you more because this is normally my downtime of the year where I don't take a lot of cases and I want to chill with my family. So, one, I think 35,000 was low. Specifically to your point, the 35K wouldn't just be for the representation. I don't think so. I don't know because I didn't want to get in the back and forth. I just sent them the link of, hey, here's information on how to qualify for a federal public defender. Typically, if you're in the household and you actually have a full-time job and you're above the poverty line, you're probably not going to qualify for a federal public defender. The court will give you a financial affidavit, and on that affidavit, you got to put how much you earn, what your income is, what your expenses are. And it's a very, the threshold to qualify for a federal public defender is like if you had a job making $40,000 a year, and depending on where you at, you more likely than that, you probably won't qualify. So it's actually, you have to be like at or very near the poverty line in most places to qualify for a public defender because you actually have resources. But just from how I read that email, Royster, I think the 35K wouldn't be just for the grand jury representation. It would be for is what they're. I'm thinking 35,000 is what the attorneys are asking for a retainer just to actually sign their name on that file saying that they're representing her in this case. So they'll probably bill if they charging $35,000 as a retainer, they may be billing $300, $400 an hour. So I'm thinking the 35,000 is the retainer just so they can make an appearance, sign their name on a file, identifying to the court that, hey, I'm your attorney, and they'll start working off that 35K, and you just kind of got to pay as that 35,000 winds down. Because representation at a grant, the message said that they had received grand jury subpoenas. So the fact that they received grand jury subpoenas, I tell you, like 99%. I think I had one case. I think I had one case where grand jury subpoena was maybe two. I maybe had two cases that I've seen where grand jury subpoenas were served and it didn't result in a subsequent indictment following. So I think that it's not just for the grand jury representation. I think that's just a retainer to represent through the entire process. That's my thoughts. Yeah, it was a multi-million-dollar fund payout with intent to offer relief to mitigate the potential of employment loss. Hey, loss of employment is always a big deal, especially when you start factoring in loss of wages, loss of leave that was accrued, loss of compensation, loss of the contribution the company would have made to your retirement, loss of the profits that you would have made had the company invested that money, had they not wrongfully terminated you. So, hey, those employment, losses can stack up. How do you know it's PPP fraud? I'm assuming you're referring to the message, but they stated in the message that they received grand jury subpoenas related to PPP loans that they got. So most times, if she expressly stated that. So the person expressly stated that. So it is what it is. Yep. So if small businesses was wrongfully presenting inaccurate numbers to qualify, then it is on them. And I think that's what most of the fraud that I've seen is. It's a small business has a company and they say, oh, they only got 5 employees, but on their application, they put that they have 50 employees. Then they get this big ass check to sustain 50 employees during the pandemic. And then they actually use the money. And I'm gonna give some gems. So shout out to that person. If y'all watching, I'm gonna give y'all some gems on if I were charged with PPP fraud, this is what I would do. Yep. They inflate the high payroll. Yep, exactly. That's exactly the situation that I'm seeing most of the times with these PPP loans. Pre-COVID, I had a boss who paid his wife a full 40 hours a week as an employee. I saw her twice a month for 1 hour, and then they go to lunch for 3 hours and then go home. There was a couple of prosecutors. There was a couple of district attorneys in North Carolina back in the day who they wouldn't hire their wife, but they would hire their friend who was another district attorney in the different counties. They would hire the spouse of their friend and give them one of those jobs where they didn't really have to report. They didn't do shit. It was just a cake job. And I'm sure they probably got some kickback too, considering that they hooked up the spouse. Yeah. But the payroll offered a tax deduction break for his business and she got walk around money. That's terrible. That's absolutely. Oh, no, I'm looking around for PPP fraudsters to be a whistleblower and get paid. But whistleblowers make a lot of money. You won't make as much you could make as much. Let's go ahead and dive into this story of this ridiculous, because this is a large amount. If you got 35% of this PPP fraud, you would be paid. But let's go ahead and dive into this story, and then I'm going to talk about what I would do if I were charged with PPP fraud, but I wouldn't be. And hey, shout out to the Biden-Harris team for doing something that was very, very smart, extending the statute of limitations for PPP fraud. So, hey, shout out to them for giving me content for another 7 to 8 years. Shout out to them.
Charges from an alleged pandemic scheme. A Phoenix couple, including a former TV news anchor, is arrested in Puerto Rico, accused of pocketing tens of millions of dollars illegally. Nicole Christine joins us with the details tonight. Nicole.
Well, Brian, Stephanie Hockridge, a former anchor at ABC 15 here in Phoenix, and her husband, Nathan Reese, are accused of submitting false and fraudulent Paycheck Protection Program, or PPP, loans. The couple took out loans for themselves and then showed others how easy it was to get taxpayer cash. A scheme worth hundreds of millions of dollars, set against the backdrop of global pandemic relief.
Criminals and criminal organizations took advantage of Americans suffering during this crisis and committed substantial fraud against these critical pandemic relief programs.
Among the alleged criminals, a former Valley television anchor, Stephanie Hockridge, and her husband, Nathan Reese. During a federal hearing, numbers reaching into 10 figures are discussed.
And people do this shit seriously. I actually saw a case where a person was engaging in fraud of a government program, and like their father passed away like on April 3rd, and on April 7th they were submitting a claim to get government funds using their father's social security number. Like the shit get real low. It's kind of crazy, actually.
I think it was 57,000 applications in PPP were for applicants who are on the do not pay list, involving several billions of dollars.
And how much fraud are we talking about just in those loans?
$3.6 billion.
Hockridge and Reese are accused of attempting to directly charge some applicants a 10% fee for successfully getting a loan, a violation of the Small Business Administration rules. A review of the loans showed what the couple was willing to do for the money, including Reese claiming in an application he was African American and a veteran. Other evidence showed Hockridge describing the PPP.
Bro, claimed he was an African American and a veteran. He said that he was me. That's crazy work, man. Like, man, this is the worst type of fraud too. Like, I mean, all fraud is generally bad, but like this fraud is most fraud fucks up the taxpayers' money, because this PPP money is our money. You, me, if you've actually paying taxes and you're a law-abiding citizen paying taxes, this is your money that they're stealing.
Other evidence showed Hockridge describing the PPP as, quote, $100 billion of free money. And although the PPP loans were set up for small businesses, Hockridge told her staff, quote, "Who the F cares? We're not the first bank to decline borrowers who deserve to be funded. They can go elsewhere." Reese and Hockridge also requested direct payments from PPP borrowers, ultimately scamming them out of substantial amounts of their loans. The entire process laid out in a 90-second video, now at the center of an alleged federal deception. The duo took their stolen millions to...
They living it up too. Look at this palatial estate that they out there living it up in off of our tax dollars. This is an absolute shit show. I agree. Hey, snitches get riches from the FBI. Hey, that government whistleblower, federal whistleblower, I feel like it's 35%, but it may be more. It may be up to 50. Let me see. Let's see. That's why whistleblower financial rewards. I'm looking to see. Okay, we'll look into that. Let's get through this video and we'll look at that. But I agree, snitches do get riches if you got some good evidence and you telling the right person.
To set up a lavish lifestyle in Puerto Rico, where her husband was taken into custody by federal authorities.
Say hi.
Now, both Hockridge and Reese are charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud and 4 counts of wire fraud. Hockridge
4 counts of wire fraud. They looking at what, 20 years for each count? That's just 80. That's 80 years just off the 4 counts of wire fraud alone. That's
has been
crazy.
summoned to appear in a Dallas, Texas court on Monday. They face up to 20 years in prison on each count if convicted. Reporting live in studio, Nicole
There's
Christine,
a lot of
Fox
wire
10
fraud
News.
cases. Mail and wire fraud. We love those. we love mail and wire fraud cases. Mail and wire frauds are easy to prove. Hey, I agree. Hey, like my father said, if you're gonna do something, don't do it half-ass. Yeah, I know someone that got a PPP loan and and took the family to Disney World. Whoa, that's crazy. Yeah. Now look at our money. Try to get back our money. Yeah, I agree. Yo, I've actually heard of this. I don't know. I don't know if this was done at any other, but I've seen a story in the news where a person at a church was showing like the members of the church how to apply for these PPP loans and get this money. So it's absolute terrible. So let's talk about, hey, this is generally what I would do if I can't give anybody else advice, but generally, if you have committed PPP fraud or you're scared that you may have fudged the books, the most important thing you could do is probably go get an attorney. I don't care if it's $35,000, because I'm sure whatever you took from the PPP loan, you did not save that for an attorney. So hopefully, I'm not a proponent of borrowing from the equity in your home, but if it could keep my ass out of jail, I'm borrowing off my 401k. I'm borrowing my house. So the number one thing is always lawyer up. The number 2 thing is, and I think this one is hard because most people don't have the money. And I've talked about this before. I talked about this on the video I did. I talked about this on a live stream where I joined my guy, Pocket Watcher with JT. Shout out to JT as well. People who can actually pay back the money are in a very, very favorable position. Now, it doesn't guarantee that you won't be prosecuted, but it does help tremendously. It's probably the most. Let's see, if I took out a PPP loan, right, and it was bogus for $35,000, and all I had was, and the feds came to me, was like, hey, here's your indictment. If I took out a loan fraudulently for $35,000, if I had to borrow equity out of my house, I would borrow the $35,000 and pay the program back actually before I hired an attorney. Now, I know that comes with a caveat because I'm an attorney and I know how this operates. I know how it goes. Most people aren't going to do that because they're going to be scared. But I actually think that you paying back the money that you took is probably a lot more favorable than hiring an attorney. Just most people aren't going to do that because they don't know the process and they're going to be scared. The reason why it's beneficial is because paying back the money doesn't guarantee you that you won't be prosecuted. I know I've personally prosecuted people who took $5,000 worth of money. It was not even worth my time and effort to prosecute that case. But sometimes you got to go after these small amounts just to let everybody else know that, yo, we even coming after this shit. You got to keep people honest. But a lot of times, some prosecutors, not all, some prosecutors don't like prosecuting a zero loss case. So a person took $30,000 from a government program. If they repay that money to the program, a lot of prosecutors aren't in favor of prosecuting a zero loss case. They like, you pay back the money, so whatever. We just gonna call it a wash. Now, that's not all prosecutors. You could pay it back. I've had a case where somebody paid it back, and just because they were a douchebag who repeatedly tried to take advantage of the system, I was like, nah, I don't give a shit if they paid it back with interest. I'm gonna make an example out of them. But some prosecutors don't want to go after a zero-sum case if it's actually nothing there to do. So I think that's a big step that a person can do as well. Mm. We will see any senators being held accountable. Nah, a lot of hey, yo, that's a that's a fair point. A lot of senators, a lot of politicians got PPP loans through for their businesses. I'm gonna assume one or two things. One, I'm gonna assume that if you're in Congress, I don't understand let me preface this first, okay? Well, no, I'm gonna assume that if you're in Congress and you took a PPP loan out, one or two things are true. One, you took the PPP loan out and you took advantage of it properly, or two, if you did do it fraudulently, you were at least smart enough to do it in a way where you could utilize your power and privilege to avoid having your ass hauled off to jail. I think one if I think one or the other of those statements have to be true. So I don't know. I just don't think it's going to be any politicians who get caught up in that. Plus, the other thing I just don't understand it as a whole. I never understood how politicians and federal politicians, senators, congressmen, I don't understand how they get caught up in crimes. Like that politician who had gold blocks in his suit jacket and money in his pocket. Like, yo, it's legal to steal money if you're a federal politician. You can do all the insider trading and you want. Why do you got to actually take a bribe? Just do what they all do. Utilize the stock market. Go into some committee that you're on, and right before you pass legislation that's going to influence a business one way or another, you take all your money and go buy shares of that company. So I never understood why politicians or how a politician could be dumb enough to get caught like stealing or taking bribes if they're federal politicians when you can do insider trading and there's no punishment because statutorily you're allowed to do it. 35K versus 20-year prison offense, the mass support, the 35K. I agree with that. Is always go. But the problem is, like, I know, like, if it were me, if I took 35K and all I had to give was 35K, I'd rather pay back the program than hiring an attorney. But most people, they don't know how the process works. They're going to be scared. They're going to pay the 35K to hire an attorney. And then the attorney is going to say, hey, can you pay back any money? And they're going to be like, no, I gave you 35K. They're going to be like, oh, well. So I don't know. That would be the move that I would make personally. Don't do the crime if you can't do the time. I agree with that 100%. Round of applause and a bell chime for that comment. One, don't do the crime if you can't do the time. But two, the other thing is, I don't know. Like, shout out to the couple in that story. They went for PPP fraud. They went big for millions of dollars. Like, no, if you're gonna commit fraud, I mean, I don't know. I don't see why would you want to get all that time for $35,000 when you can get all that time, but at least you had a chance to have tens of millions of dollars and live the lifestyle. Although, hey, I'm not condoning criminal activity. Everybody should do things the legal way. But I never understood why people go small. Even like I represented clients and they would always get these small drug charges. And I would just be like, yo, why? Like, I wanted to just sit them down and be like, look, either dedicate yourself to the drug game or go get your commercial driver's license and become a truck driver. Because you keep getting these small drug infractions, and over time, you're going to get so many where when you get caught again, you're going to do damn near as much time as the guy who is a kingpin who's living this lavish lifestyle. So I don't know. I mean, everybody should follow the law, but like, hey, if you, I just don't understand doing it on a small scale for the same amount of risk that someone who did it on a larger scale would get. That doesn't even make sense to me personally. Yeah, but no, I'll tell you, like, I've had cases where persons were like, hey, we'll pay back the money. And be like, hey, just because you pay back the money, that's good. but it doesn't absolutely guarantee that you won't be prosecuted. That's completely up to the U.S. attorney. And normally, when people paying back money, no, we don't like to do a lot. I never like to do a lot of payment plans. Like, could you get it to me? And I think the most we gave was 6 months. I think the most that I've ever seen, like, okay, if you want to pay off what you took from the program, I think I can remember like seeing a 6 month thing. And these people, but they were making payments. They were making like month one, $20,000, month two, $30,000. They were one of the very few people who took money from a government program and actually, even though the method with which they got the money was false by false certifications and false statements, once they got the money, they actually turned it into a viable business entity. So they were able to pay back like 20,000 one month, 30,000 one month, and they actually paid back a substantial portion, and it actually ended up working out in their favor big time. Let's see. That couple really needed that vacation. They got arrested in the same place. Let me pull up this article real quick because these are the things. The False Claims Act is written broadly with the aim of reaching all types of fraud that mitigate results in financial loss to the United States. It identifies 7 violations, any of which is a violation of the False Claims Act. So I did a lot of False Claims Act stuff. False Claims Act is interesting. I'm gonna pull this up so we can see it and we can go through some of them. Let's stop sharing that. Let's do a screen share on this guide. All right, let's share. Let's downsize it. All right, I'm gonna give y'all a little bit of history. The False Claims Act, it actually started out, they call it Lincoln's Law. I'm such a fucking nerd, but it started out as Lincoln's Law. And the basis of the False Claims Act was for war profiteers. Back in the day, during these wars where people was busting off their muskets and their 22s and their bolt action rifles, you had a lot of companies who looked to take advantage by supplying the military with goods. So these companies would submit false claims, submit false invoices to the federal government, and the federal government really didn't have a way of tracking it, so they would just pay it. And subsequently, they developed the False Claims Act, Lincoln's Law, and this law say, hey, if you submit a false claim for payment to the federal government, we can hem your ass up with a False Claims Act violations where you can get 3 times the amount of damages. So if I filed a false claim with the government and I got $35,000 or I got $100,000, they can get $300,000 in civil recoveries from me. That's 3 times the damages, to include penalties that could be added on and tacked on to that. So think about it. Somebody say, oh, I took out a $30,000 in PPP fraud and now I got a grand jury subpoena. Well, it's possible they can have a criminal and a parallel civil investigation for a federal False Claims Act violation. So now they're looking at $90,000 of actual monies that they would have to pay back. But let's go ahead and pull this up just so we can go through a few of the categories so you all can see them. False claims: presenting or causing the presentment of a false claim for payment or approval. False records or false statements: making, using, or causing others to make or use a false record or statement that is material to the false or fraudulent claim. Conspiracy: conspiring to violate the False Claims Act. Conversion: failing to return government property. False receipts: making or delivering a receipt of government property without completely knowing that the information in it is true. Unlawful purchase of government property: buying public property from a government employee who may not lawfully sell it. And reverse false claims: I never understood why they called it that. Well, I understood, but it's just a false claim. A reverse false claim: making, using, or causing to be made or use a false record or statement material to an obligation to pay money to the government, or conceal, avoids, decreases an obligation to pay money for the government. Now I'm looking to see false claims, damages, and penalties. False claim references penalties between 5,000 and 10,000, indexed by inflation. Yep. Materiality, false claims. Okay, here it goes. Whistleblower reward, the relator share. They refer to the whistleblower as the relator. All right, the whistleblower share of the government's money, monetary recovery depend on several factors. The most important is whether the government intervened and took over a relator's False Claims Act case. And let me explain that part a little bit. So essentially, what happens is law firms who do False Claims Act cases, they kind of leech on the government resources. Okay. I seen one situation that wasn't a leech that worked out in favor of a relator or a whistleblower. But typically, what happens, let's say I have a law firm and we do False Claims Act violations. You work at whatever, Moderna Pharmaceutical, and you're aware that Moderna Pharmaceutical is engaged in an off-label marketing, and they also are filling out false records related to, they're filling out false information related to the price of their drugs so they can overbill the government. They're overinflating the price of their drugs, right? So you work at Moderna, you know Moderna is overinflating the price of their drugs. So you come to me as the False Claims Act attorney. I'm going to get all of your information. How do you know this? Do you got any information? How can you prove this? Once I get all this information from you, all I'm going to do is draft a complaint. I'm not even going to file that complaint with the court yet. I just draft that complaint, make sure that complaint has what we consider to be substantiated evidence to prove this. Well, my client knows this because he works in the marketing department or whatever it is, but we want to make sure that complaint has some meat and potatoes. Well, essentially, case is filed, it's presented to the federal government. The federal government has to make a decision of, are we going to intervene in this whistleblower's case? So if the federal government, we look at the complaint, let's say the federal government look at the complaint and they like, yo, I looked at this complaint, and after we all looked at this complaint, all of my attorneys, we conclude that this is a viable case. We want to intervene. If the federal government or state government in some instances, if they intervene, they take that case from the whistleblower, and the whistleblower, all they have to do is answer questions and provide evidence. From there on out, the government is using its resources to conduct the investigation. They're doing the subpoenas to get the information. So that whistleblower just gets to sit back, cooperate, provide the information, and if the government does all the work, and then at the end of the day, they get a cut. Now, if the federal government doesn't intervene, we say, hey, we looked at this case and we don't think that this whistleblower can provide us enough facts to be able to get these civil damages against this entity or what have you. If that's what the case is, 99% of the time, the law firm is going to just drop the case. Because you know how much it would cost for the law firm to use their own resources to do that investigation? That would be crazy. There's no way I would ever do that. I did see one instance where a government entity didn't intervene. The law firm actually held on to the case and actually continued to do the investigation, went to trial and won without the government's assistance. They won the government a shitload of money. So that relator got paid big time because the government didn't do anything. That firm did all the work. So that relator got a big ass portion of the damages. That relator, there probably was some attorney fees that was also included in that as well. So that's essentially what they mean by if the government is going to intervene. If the government is going to intervene, the whistleblower snitches, they file the complaint. The government looks at the complaint and says, oh, this is a good case. We'll take over from here. We'll do everything. We'll call you when we need information and we'll go forward. Once we win this case, you'll get a certain percentage. If they decline it, that means the firm is either going to drop the case, which happens most of the time because most firms don't have the resources to investigate certain shit, or the firm is going to hold on to it. They're going to do their own investigation and see if they can win it unilaterally on their own without any government help, which is crazy work. I think it's crazy work personally. All right, so let's look at the monetary damages or recovery that they can get. All right, so it says the most important is whether the government intervened in and took over the relator's False Claims Act case, or whether the government declined to intervene and the relator chose to proceed on his or her own to prosecute the case. The general guidance is as follows. Intervention. The False Claims Act provides for a relator's share of 15 to 25% of the proceeds collected by the United States, depending on the extent to which the person substantially contributed to the prosecution of the action. Declination. The FCA provides for a relator a share of 25 to 30% of the proceeds collected by the United States based on what the court finds reasonable for collecting the damages and penalty. In exceptions, the share may be reduced or eliminated when the relator was planner or initiator of the fraud, or was criminally convicted, or based their qui tam whistleblower action on information learned from the government. Attorney fees and costs. A losing defendant is required to pay the relators reasonable attorney fees. So yeah, attorney fees and all that. But yeah, being a snitch for the government is actually really, really, really big business. So, hey, I'm not saying that you should be a snitch, but I am saying that, hey, snitches get riches, like they said earlier. State watchdog uncovers at least 7.2 million in PPP fraud by state employees. I got one better than that. I saw another article. Let me pull it up real quick. You know what? Let me go here, because I saw another article and I said, man, this PPP thing is kind of wild. Let's back up. Let's get out of here. Can't go. Hold on, wait. All right, let's go here. Let me see if I can find this other story. This was actually crazier. You said a state employee. What state agency did they work for? Close that out. Give me 1 second. I don't know if this was a new case, but it popped up on my radar. Yeah, this is. How many? Oh no, we're not gonna look at that one. I'm looking for. Where is the case? Hold on, give me 1 second. Is let's see. It was crazy. All right, this is a story of IRS employees. IRS employees were charged and convicted of PPP fraud. So the shit get real stupid. I seen police officers, I seen IRS employees, I seen state IRS employees, I see federal IRS employees. It's just an absolute shit show. Oh, Chicago, go figure. It's all over the place though. It's all over the place, and that's the worst type of fraud because it's just money out of your pocket. I'm not a big fan of any type of fraud because it just costs us more fucking money. But yeah, the PPP thing is not going nowhere. It's going to be a while for a while. We're going to have at least another 7 to 8 years of people getting arrested for it. And how did it even get here? The reason why the program is such an easy program to defraud, because how can I put this? Generally, Congress is bad at writing laws. Okay. If Congress was good at writing laws, there wouldn't be any need for a Supreme Court to interpret everything, because we should be able to read the law and know what the hell they are trying to accomplish and what they want to do based on the written law. But Congress is actually terrible at writing laws. They'll write something that's vague, then the courts got to fight over it and figure it out, or they got to come back and ratify the legislation or amend the legislation to provide some clarity. So the reason why the PPP fraud was so easy to commit was because it was a pandemic and they were just trying to scramble to get this money out so that it could keep the economy afloat. I don't know if they really give a damn about keeping people afloat, but they wanted to keep the economy afloat. They didn't want the stock market to crash. And so because they wanted to get this money out in a rush, they created no checks and balances. They created no mechanism for this program to be policed. And they're trying to figure it out on the back end. Because I think one of the easiest things to do is if I were creating a program, I think this is actually smart. If I had a government program where I'm giving money out, I would never ever give it out in one lump sum. I think that's stupid to give it out in one lump sum. So if an applicant said they had 10 employees and they pay those 10 employees X amount of dollars, I would do quarterly payments instead of giving them all the money at once. I would do quarterly payments. And then every quarter before they got the payment, they would have to sign under penalty of perjury affidavit saying that, hey, me signing this hereby confirms that I maintain 10 employees and these funds will be used for this, this, and this. And so every quarter number one, I give them 25% of the funds they need to pay their employees and have them sign. Do the same thing in 2, 3, and 4. And a lot of people be like, well, why would you do it quarterly? The reason I would do it quarterly is because every time they sign a statement, that's a new false statement that's being filed. If they file that false statement on the 1st and you give them all of the money up once, now you locked in the statute of limitations for that false statement on that date that they signed it where you gave them everything. But if you disperse that money over time and every time before they get it, you make them sign something under penalty of perjury, now instead of having you on one charge for a false claim or false statement to the government, I got you on 4 because you had to sign and you had to authenticate and affirm under penalty of perjury every time you received a payment. Now it gives me a little bit more leverage for purposes of, going after someone. That's kind of my thought. But what's going on, Lisa? I appreciate you tuning in. It was some interesting stories in the news today. It was a lot of them. I didn't even talk about a couple of stories I saw, but I thought I wanted to just jump on here and just cover some of those stories since I didn't put them out in short form during the week because I was just busy during a holiday. And I'm going to get up early in the morning and your boy going to have to throw down. Y'all may not know this. Very few people in the chat know this, but your boy DFD is something like a chef, okay? I gets down, okay? So I'm going to have to get up early in the morning to cook some collards and some yams and all of that good stuff. I actually wanted to do it tonight, but hell no, it's 1:15. It's too late tonight. I cook some shit tonight, it's gonna be burnt, and then we're gonna have a bigger problem. But yeah, that's it. I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Friday, we are gonna do a live Friday. I thought about doing one tomorrow, just having something fun and interesting to do for the members. I don't know. I'll put that up. Y'all let me know after turkey time if y'all interested. I'm thinking of doing a members only thing, but tomorrow might be a bad day. It might be better on Saturday. I know me, Thanksgiving, after I eat, I ain't going nowhere. So I'm going to be in the house. So I don't know if y'all might eat and then go out for a family outing or something. But Thanksgiving, now I'm going to watch football. I'm going to sit on my ass and eat, and I'm not going nowhere. So Thanksgiving would be the perfect time for me to watch it live. A late night because my ass gonna be at a house eating on my 3rd or 4th plate. Yeah. Don't put no pork and collars. I agree with that. Don't put any pork and collars. You don't do it. Typically, I'm being honest. Typically, you saute collard greens. I saute most of my vegetables. The only time I don't saute them is for Thanksgiving. You just boil the fuck out of them and dilute all the nutrients. But yeah, no pork. I don't put no smoked neck bones. Even though that shit's delicious, yeah, I agree. No pork. And the only reason I just stopped doing it because like it's people in my house who just eat seafood, and I got tired of making 2 pots of greens. I was like, you know what? Nobody having fucking pork. We all eating this shit without pork. And honestly, you can't taste the difference. Like, I can't. I mean, if you cooking it right, it's hard to taste the difference. Yep. I appreciate it, everyone. Y'all have a good one. Enjoy the time with y'all family. Enjoy the holiday, the time off if you got it off. Be safe and be blessed. Ham hocks. Nah, I'm more of a smoked neck bone type of guy. Y'all be blessed and be safe. Have a good one. Peace.